Well, we're extremely happy to have you on today, and let's just go ahead and dive right into the really important question, and that is: are you Garrett or are you Cletus? And when are you one and when are you the other? I think that's where what all listeners are
Oh,
trying to understand.
I think I'm Garrett at the moment. I don't know. I'm always kind of both. It's I'm definitely Cletus when I'm behind the wheel of the car. I'm Garrett when I'm paying the bills, and the rest of the time I'm 50-50.
So when you're drinking a beer with a cutoff T-shirt on, then you're all Cletus.
Yeah, yeah. On the hovercraft, full Cletus. And once the engines are running, I'm full Cletus. But once the serious stuff comes into play, I'm Garrett. So
Fair enough. I love it. I love it. I think
I've got a pretty smooth transition.
we all need a little bit of distraction, things to not take ourselves so damn seriously all the time because we're all working our ass off. So
Yep.
I appreciate that. Well, Garrett, I want to rewind back to a time that's probably hard to even imagine now, which is pre Cletus. And even though Cletus was always in your soul, you hadn't
Yeah.
found Cletus yet. Um, so you grew up in Nebraska. Tell us a little bit about what growing up in Omaha was like for you.
I lived right on the outskirts of Omaha, Nebraska, so kind of right in between farmland and full neighborhood areas. Lived on a little acreage, like 6 acres, and it was perfect, man. I definitely got best of both worlds, having some land to grow up riding on four wheelers and dirt bikes, and then also, you know, having close enough friends that I didn't have to, you know, only know one or two guys in the surrounding 20-mile area. So it was the perfect way to grow up. My parents were amazing raising us, and Nebraska was awesome, man. We would drive our snowmobiles to high school, our tractors to school if we wanted to. I drove to school when I was 14. I used to park in the staff lot at my middle school. It's like the possibilities in Nebraska seem endless because of just, it's a little bit lawless compared to some of the areas. Florida's pretty lawless, but a lot of other areas, man, it's like it's so strict these days.
Yeah,
Growing up in
absolutely.
Nebraska is awesome.
So, what kind of vehicle did you drive to middle school and park in the staff lot?
I had a 2001 Trailblazer LTZ with like 228,000 miles on it. And if you clicked on the AC, it shut off. It was awesome. I loved it.
That's great. I thought you were going to say it was a tractor or something like that. So it was a street ready vehicle. You were good to go. The staff just kind of
Well,
looked the
yeah.
other way.
No, I mean, I always drove my dad's cars, and he had a little Geo Tracker, was kind of like our little barn runaround vehicle. And so, I mean, that was like my ripper. That's what I enjoyed driving that more than anything at the house, in the barn. So I definitely got a lot of wheel time on the property. And then, even, like there was no, let's go teach you how to drive. It was always like, okay, you got your license. We'll see you later. I knew how to drive since far before I was allowed to.
I love it. I love it. So you mentioned that you had a lot of opportunity to ride dirt bikes and go-karts and everything
Yeah,
as a youngster. And it sounds like your pops taught you a lot of that, right? And you were involved
yeah, for
pretty
sure.
extensively with your dad. So what's the number one thing what's the number one lesson that your dad has taught you over time?
Don't burn bridges, for sure. That guy, my dad's an entrepreneur, and I mean, I know there's been a couple bridges burned, but the guy's 54, 55 years old. So in that amount of time, for the very, very limited amount of people he's, can't call today, is incredible. And I have lived my, and that's not related to four wheelers or dirt bikes, besides the
No.
fact that we used to start, little mini bonfires in the woods, but on the more non-literal, the don't burn bridges with people. And my dad taught me that a long time ago, and I'm so thankful that I haven't burned. I mean, I don't think there's any bridges that I've burned in my life, and I can honestly say that. I don't think I've burned any bridges.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And one of the things that I like to think about a lot is the power of long-term thinking versus short-term thinking.
For
And,
sure.
and so in any individual deal or any moment, I mean, you could make a few extra bucks. You could screw someone over,
For sure.
but you're only hurting yourself when you do that. And I painted sort of like a black and white picture, but as you know, man, there's a lot of gray when you're out there doing deals and interacting with people and doing the right thing over time. I mean, it's not only like feels good, but man, it's the right business move too.
It is, man. Like I can tell you right now, today has been one of the craziest days of my life because, I don't know how familiar you are with the guys on the channel, but Cooper has been my right hand guy since we started.
Yep.
And today was the announcement of the fact that he will no longer be a part of my business. And, him and I have been best friends for 5 or almost like, no, probably like 7 years now. And I previously, when I met him, I worked for a different company, and the owner of that company helped me start my own channel, and that's
It's
the reason why.
1320 videos, right? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But I was at that time, I was Kyle's social media manager. I managed basically everything that people saw that came from the company, and
And
you know,
Kyle's the CEO of 1320 videos,
he's
right?
the CEO and owner.
Yep.
Yeah, and for him to lose me, it obviously was tough. But he, instead of taking the perspective of you know I'm going to lose you, and trying to stop me from doing what I'm doing. He took the perspective of let me help you. And this week, Cooper and I came to that same thing, and I was able to help him. I've been watching his live subscriber count. He already just blew past 50,000 subscribers today on his channel, posted his first video up, and it's just, you can be so negative. It's so easy to be negative in life, but if you just take a second to see how you can make this a better situation for both parties, it really all works out, because Kyle and I are still amazing friends to this day, and I'm sure Cooper and I will remain amazing friends through all of this.
Yeah. And when you went through that, did you find yourself having to sort of fight a little bit of that inner self that does want to like try to cling on to that
Oh
that
man,
near term guide, and then you think
it's
about it
so
for a second, and you're like, no, stop that thinking.
I mean, it's tough, man. Like, obviously having that conversation was a conversation him and I never wanted to have, us
Right.
splitting up.
Right.
But once it happened, it was like a relief for both of us, and it's your body and you mentally don't want to do it, but it can make things worse. It's like whether when there's a problem, you really just got to face it head on and level headed, keep the emotions out of it, and bam, it turns out good for everybody.
Yeah, it's funny. So for the MuskOx email, just wrote an email yesterday that is going to go out in a couple of days, and was talking about fall and how fall is actually the first step of spring. And and really what I mean by that is you actually need to clear out space sometimes in
Yeah.
order to create something new and fantastic. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that was bad, right? From a tree's perspective, like
Yeah.
having the leaf fall off the tree, that's not saying, hey, this leaf was bad, not at all, but it's saying, hey, we've only got so much energy, we've only got so many resources, and we need to clear out space for ourselves. And I think that's a super important thing. And
Yep.
it's like good for you, good for Cooper, because in the long run, like you guys are going to be able to help each other. And like I see that personally with you in 1320 even now, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just got off a week-long trip with 1320, and they help me film videos, and we end up on the title and thumbnails of their videos, which helps them get views. I mean, it's perfect, and I hope that Cooper and I can reach that level. But this is the only
It's
day
early.
one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'd love to hear about some of your other adventures. So, but before we get into that, I want to talk, like, one of the things that I think a lot of the people who are going to listen to this are going to really appreciate about what you get to do is, for the most part, you spend most of your time outside. So you got to spend a lot of time in the shop too, no doubt about it. But you get to
Yep.
spend a lot of time outside. So I know we're all so busy, you probably don't get a time to like take a step back and appreciate it. But for you, like what's the best part about being able to work out in the sunlight under the blue sky?
The best part of that. I don't know what the best part of working outside is. That's an interesting question. I mean, the ability to enjoy the outdoors while you're working is just kind of something that you take for granted, I guess.
Right.
Think about it. But if I didn't have that ability, I can tell you that would really suck because, being out in the bright blue sky, or whether it's raining or windy, here in Florida, it's just always beautiful. And being able to run cars out in the weather and just enjoy it, that's something I'm really thankful for. But I guess I do take it for granted now that I think about it.
Well, you mentioned a phrase, things that suck. And I want to go into that a little bit because I grew up and my father was an attorney. My sister is an attorney. I have two cousins that are attorneys, and I thought about becoming an attorney. And the message that I continually got from those people who are practicing attorneys, some of them practicing, some of them not, or more or less, that kind of sucks. So I don't know if you really want to do that. So obviously, hey, a lot of people love that vocation. But I know it wasn't for me. So I want to hear, for those of you that, for the people that aren't familiar with your story, obviously you started out in law school, started to build this fantastic, persona. And I think that's the right word, persona online, and they've obviously grown into it. So, so obviously you've been tremendously successful, huge YouTube channels, great track, pay-per-view, podcast coming up, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but, talk us through what that experience was like, making the decision to not continue to go down the path of law school.
Well, it all became okay. So I started my YouTube channel right when I started law school, which was definitely, distracting. I've always had a really hard time paying attention in any form of school, but I'm great at taking exams, luckily. And graduated my undergrad a year early, didn't really know what to do. So I was like, well, I'll go to law school. So I joined law school, started the YouTube channel up, and was just hugely distracted. All I wanted to do was race and work.
Right.
And so about a year and a half into it, we went out to an event and we drove, we did great at the event, got some killer videos, hopped in the truck and drove straight through the night, all the way through the night for, I'm pretty sure it was tax law or something like that, Monday morning. Drove all the way through the night. Wasn't going to make it in time, so I unloaded my Corvette and I hauled down I-75 to make it to school in time because the rig is too slow. So we get to freaking school. I walk in and in tax law, there's a lot of videos and a lot of like interactive learning things. And I walk in and we pretty much watched a movie the whole class. And I was just like, man, this is it. I'm done. So there was only a couple of weeks left in the semester. Well, there's a solid month and a half left in the semester. I got through it, and towards the end of I had to call my family and tell them, my grandparents were, not real understanding because you're telling them, hey, I'm dropping out of law school to pursue a career as a guy named Cletus on YouTube. They have no idea. And, they're all entrepreneurs themselves. So it was tough, but like, I guess you have two options, it's to live your life to the fullest or to live your life to what people think. And, I just said, I don't really care, I'm going to do what I do. And I'm so glad I did. And they're all glad I did now too, but it was hard for them to understand at first.
Yeah.
Sure. That was one of the hard parts.
I love it when you have those moments of clarity, right? And it's funny because I think, I don't want to make something a gender thing too much, but I feel like guys do that much more so, where it's like all of a sudden, like, you know what? Whether it's, oh, man, I've been drinking too much, or I've been eating too much, or I need to go, I'm going to start this thing. And the second we make a decision, then it's like off to the races. but a lot of times it's just those moments of clarity. And I think it's so awesome that you took action on it in that moment. And obviously been just tremendously successful. But I do want to hear a little bit more about that conversation with your grandparents.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, my grandfather went to law school and he dropped out. And he always told me that it was one of his biggest regrets. So, he was one of the first guys to call me. And it sucked, It's like, how do you tell? It's just such a difficult thing to explain, And I'm like, Grandpa, sorry, I got to go do what I got to do, And especially sucked because I'm paying for my own law school. So not only am I going in debt to do something I don't want to do, now that I know that, at first I wanted to do it, but the good news is, the first year of law school, especially the first year and a half, is really good fundamentals. So I did get away with some knowledge that'll forever help me, but, probably a little expensive.
Yeah, but it's worth it, right? But I think like one of the analogies I like the most is when your car's stuck in the snow, which I'm sure you had to worry about in Omaha, probably not so much down in Florida, but you don't really care. Like, hey, am I trying to go north, south, east, or west? Like, no, just start to rock that guy. I don't care where you want to go. You just need some movement. And sometimes you just got to go put yourself out there, get some movement going and figure it out from there. So kudos for you for making that, for making that happen. So obviously we're here now, 2020. Cleetus McFarland feels like a rocket ship from the outside. Looking in, you got main channel, second channel. You got the merch, you got the track. Freedom Factory rocking and rolling.
Hard.
But and you do go hard. I know that for a fact. But I'd love to hear maybe what's been the number one obstacle that you've had to overcome for this growth, because I know it's not easy, and I know there's a ton of sacrifices that you've had to make along the way.
The number one obstacle it depends. There's different obstacles at different heights, and the 0 to 100,000 subscribers deal is the hardest thing. Is the haters, because you're not built for it yet, and your channel doesn't have enough people supporting it to defend the people who want to hate. You know what I mean? So that's a challenging area for any young person to climb through, and the car industry can be bad, but I can only imagine other industries are much worse, like makeup or fashion. You can only imagine how ruthless those people are, and not to mention those types of people can be more emotional, so to get those types of channels off the ground, I can imagine that stuff. Once you're past 100,000 subs, you don't really have to worry about that, because then you finally get the people who step in and say, hey, I think he's cool, and because now if you go write a hate comment in my comments, people are probably going to get kind of pissed. But it still happens, whatever. From 100K up, there's a lot of challenging things, whether it's accounting management, you'll deal with copyright issues that, like just last week I had like 20 copyright claims against my videos for my outro. And this company had claimed it was their song, which it's actually a song from the YouTube audio library. It's like, now you're not making money on the last 20 videos you posted. That's and you're exhausting. Like, the hell, and it's 11 o'clock at night. There's no one you can call at YouTube, and it's like, what do you do? So from that 100K to about 500K, you become numb to the system and the fact that you're pretty much helpless given the, something critical happens with technology. And you learn a lot through that section. But then, from there on, man, it's just a lot of business management. Any guy who creates a channel this size that you probably know, whether it be Adam or Matt, it's a full-blown business when you grow it to a company with personnel and vehicles and what it may be. I have 50 titles in my name. It's like
that alone.
A lot of organization, and that's definitely the most challenging part from here forward, is just making sure the business runs right, because last thing you want to be is catch yourself up in some trouble.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's what gets trickier and trickier is at the end of the day, you're a car guy that makes fantastic videos, but that's only a fraction of where you spend your time now. And there's so many other things that you have to do.
100%.
And man, it's hard as you grow. One of the things that it is startup culture they talk about, like as CEO, like you need to continue to fire yourself from 50% of what you're doing every single year, and that's gets harder and harder to do, but more and more important.
That's a great great way to put it. But yeah, that's a hard thing to accomplish.
Oh yeah, because it's your baby. Like everything was your baby, and now the whole channel is your baby. But there's fewer and fewer things that
Yeah.
that you
Well, it's now I don't have to. Now I don't check the gaps on the spark plugs. I don't check the oil's topped off.
right.
I mean, there's times when I do, but letting go of those responsibilities can be a challenge.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So you are across so many things. We mentioned that a couple of times now. So for those that don't know, you bought an old Speedway, DeSoto Speedway, right? Much better, more aptly named now, Freedom Factory.
Yeah.
And so that's not that's not a trivial investment, excuse me. And so when you're looking at all the different opportunities out there, right? Because you can invest in cars, go-karts, engines, just about anything now. How do you evaluate what a good opportunity looks like?
So, I mean, luckily my brain is trained that like if I see something cool, I know it's going to work well. If I see something, I'm like, ooh, what is that? Odds are it's going to be awesome for the channel. So, but I will say that I knew about the Speedway far before I even thought of buying it for the channel. I really only got it for the channel when I realized there's YouTube's cracking down on things that they're doing, and I was talking with the guy who owns the drag strip. I was like, man, what if we built a burnout pad over here somewhere where I can hoon my stuff, and I need to use the drag strip. And we were at dinner, and I was like, what about the freaking Speedway right next door? What am I thinking? So I called the guy the next morning. I was like, what's it going to take to buy it? And I did everything in my power from that moment forward until it was mine, which was a very scary process because as a YouTuber, you really don't know what's going to work 100% until you put it out there. But I had spoken, like Matt from Demo Ranch again. He did the
mansion.
Man, and I called him up. I was like, "What do you think?" And he's like, "Dude, that's so cool." And I was like, "All right, well, I was closing like a week later, so it's kind of already in motion." But it's pretty scary sitting in a meeting by yourself with a bunch of guys in suits, and they drop a big ring of keys on the table. You're like, "Oh man, what did I get myself into this time?"
I hear you. I love it though. I love it. So when you made the decision to do it, did you have like a grand vision for what it was gonna look like? Did you know, hey, I'm gonna do these pay-per-view events, or was it more of like, hey, this just feels right?
No plans for pay-per-views. So we have an event called Cletus in Cars, and it's a burnout/drag race event. But the burnouts are the main show. And so we were like, we do them at the Bradenton Motorsports Park, which is a great facility for it. But we have to set up a burnout pad. It's a drag strip, doesn't have like a designated burnout area or anything. So we can only hold so many people there. And the Speedway was set up better because it's got grandstand style seating, and then you can put the burnout pad. So we kind of planned on doing that. That was our goal, but really we knew it would be great for the channel and the content that would come with that. So we went for it with the channel more in mind than anything. And then I woke up one Sunday morning and something triggered my mind to a pay-per-view, and I was like, man, I was like, we're not gonna be able to open for a while because everything's in such disrepair. I was like, what if we do a freaking pay-per-view race? And I called my business manager, then I called my buddy who I know does live events, and we just freaking ripped a pay-per-view in the middle of the COVID outbreak and had a great time.
So. Crushed it, and then headed out to Colorado for a race too, right?
Yep, crushed it and moved on.
I love it. Very cool. Very cool. So I know you've got a lot of stuff in the works, but one quick car question here. I'm sure a lot of people would love to hear. So if costs were no constraints, what would be your dream car engine combination?
Well, I don't know necessarily. I mean, I have my dream car for certain things. Like,
Right.
oh man, a dream car, like dream street car or dream like anything.
I mean, that's up to you. That's totally your call there. I'd say anything.
See, because the thing is like there's a level to this sport, and I know that if I had unlimited money and just bought a super insane car, then you just have to work on them all the time. So there's a balance. Like I
Right.
love Ruby and Leroy. I wouldn't give those cars up for the world. Those are
Mhm.
my two babies. Like their engines, their everything is right at the perfect level. I don't want anything more than those two cars that I have.
I love it. The man's loyal. There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So so I understand you've got a few things coming up. So you got another pay per view
Yeah.
later this year. That's happening in November. Is that right?
November 14th, we have this is this tickets will be on sale at the end of September, but it's called the 2.4 hours of lay mullets.
Love it.
So it's gonna be
Love it.
pretty awesome. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
super
a
excited.
lot of locks flowing in some fast
Yeah,
cars. That'll be good. It'll be a good moment. And a lot of
absolutely.
you got something coming up with a lot of lips flapping as well, right? You've got a new podcast in the works, I understand.
Yeah. And then we've got the Wheelman podcast. We got Ronnie Renner on there this week, professional motocross rider. So just really trying to do a bunch of stuff, man. Just I love coming up with new ideas and trying them. If they don't work, cool. If they do work, awesome.
That's great. What was the last idea that you were able to let go? Right, because kind of goes back to that fall discussion. First sign of spring is fall. So what's one thing that you've been able to let go along the way?
Something that I've let go. I bought a jet engine and I bought a car with the intentions of building a jet car. And I built the chassis. We did all the roll cage, everything. The mount for the jet had it mounted. We were doing fuel tanks and all that. And then a couple of jet drivers passed away, which is very unfortunate. And at that point, we said we need to call it off. And everyone understood, man, but it was tough because how do you get a million people excited about a
Uh,
freaking jet powered El Camino and then say, hey guys, by the way, we're not doing that.
yeah, that's
That's
tough.
tough
That's
now,
tough.
but we made the call.
Yeah, I hear you. I think more involvement with more El Caminos is always a good thing. So
Yeah, right.
hopefully, it might not be with a jet attached to it, but hopefully there'll be more El Caminos in the future.
We are finishing the car with a different setup, so it'll be cool.
Right on. Well, two last questions here. Quick questions for you before we let you get on with things. So,
Okay.
number one is what's your biggest pet peeve?
Ooh, lollygaggers, people who are so slow. I can't stand people who just mosey. Like if I'm doing something, I'm like, let's go. You know what I mean? And I just have a very rushed personality in person, but I get on people a lot for that.
Love it, love it. Got things to do, places to see. Right. Let's
Yeah.
keep it moving, people. So, final question for you here is: what is the best piece of advice you've gotten from anyone over time?
Take the what would it be? What's the best way to say it? Because it's my own term now. The road to less stress. So in life, you will have an uphill stress climb until you reach a, position of comfortability where you can then say, I'll take the road to less stress. So, say, Brad, your buddy screws you over. You got a contract with him. You can sue him. You look at that option. You say, I could take this guy for everything he's got, spend money on lawyers where no one wins, and battle and just destroy this guy. Or I can go home and hang out with my wife. Take the road to less stress.
I love it. I love it. Well, Garrett, that's a great note to end on. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you being part of the MuskOx herd and supporting us. So if you're not already subscribed, folks, go check out Cleetus McFarland. You'll be happy you did, especially if you're a car guy. So again, Garrett, thanks for the time, and we will see you around. Take care.
Hell yeah. See you later.